Say it again.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm the stereotypical male. I don't like talking about myself. I'm very nervous about this. I'm a generally like my baseline for this type of thing. Like I'm very anxious about it. So I've been
Wow.
sitting here for about 30 minutes, like trying to think of what could possibly come up. But also, I know that putting myself in these situations is ultimately testing me and pushing me because normally after something like this I'd go jump in the fridge or something and
I
find
know.
something.
Let's make sure we make a plan
Yeah.
for after the podcast, right?
Yeah,
I was like, what a perfect time to go eat a sheet cake.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it's so nice to meet you. We've now been friends we've been friends since 2 days ago, but
Yeah,
uh, we've been friends on a podcast for 2 minutes. It's so nice to meet you,
yeah, nice to meet you too.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Um, can we want to tell everybody how you got here on what you're craving? And by the way, we're doing this on a Saturday morning.
Yeah,
Happy Saturday.
yeah, it's the only time I have free, it seems like, lately, but
I know, me too. And
I've
I just wanted to talk to you like the minute you would be willing to talk to me. So,
I'm flattered. So, I've been following you for a couple months now. I've kind of tried to quit sugar on my own for a very long time, or really like noticed my food addiction, I would say in 2016, 2017. So that shows you how much I procrastinated on dealing with it. I started looking for resources this year, when I realized like it was sugar and carbs. Like I've kind of known it for some time, but I guess I'm so busy that I just never really um, took care of it and
mm,
started Googling things. And your podcast came up, so I started listening to it. And then after that, started looking into you, and then found out you wrote a book called Breaking Up with Sugar, which I got on Audible and listened to that. And I've had to listen to it several times because, like I said, I'm so busy that usually at the end of the night is when I can listen or read a book, and I end up falling asleep. So it's like I'll get through chapter one on one this. So it's been weeks and weeks, and it's been a whole process of like a lot of the information I knew, because I've done research. I'm not like a doctor or anything, but I knew that this stuff was bad for me. But it's
mm,
like kind of like a drug addict. I've been protecting it, saying, well, no, I don't. This is just food, I had that same mentality that most people have. Like,
yeah.
this is just food. Like, I can control myself. But yeah, that's
Or
not the
like I
case.
should be able to control
Yeah,
myself. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, it's just like a cupcake,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think it's fascinating. I mean, I think this whole thing is fascinating. Oh, and so then Marshall like posted this like amazing reel.
yeah.
My 12-year-old goddaughter's currently like my social media manager. I
I'm
would
trying. It changes constantly. I just want to put a video out there and put it on my platform. So however it goes out there, that's fine. I actually joined the Facebook group
Oh, welcome.
maybe
This is
maybe 2 months ago. Around the time I got the book, I started realizing there was all these resources. But like I'm not. I introduced myself briefly, but then I was like, I think the last 2 months I've been on this struggle of like getting
mm,
started.
yeah.
If I were to actually like look at the time that I started, it was probably about 6 weeks ago. But then I've slipped up, and so I didn't really start counting my days until like I was like, well, I'm turning. I looked at the days that until I turned 40, so I was like, well, this is a good benchmark to kind of like get through my 66 days and kind of motivate me to say, okay, I'm going to do this before I hit 40. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, so you posted that reel. It was your
hmm
day one and you
yeah,
tagged me in it.
yeah,
And I've been doing this work for a really long time and I've had the privilege of treating a lot of like, as I think we would say now, cis males.
hmm
And it's such a lonely experience, right? It's so geared toward like feminine that I think I've experienced with men that because men are so like diety about it and almost like gambling and it's about weight and it's about diet and like there's just no way that that works. And so you posted your day one video. It was so touching. And by the way, just for anybody listening who's like new to the show, he's talking about 66 days. When I decided to write Breaking Up with Sugar, I was working with Alex Wilt, who was my writing partner at the time. And I was like, Alex, she's a researcher. I said, go find the first day where the brain gets automacy. She found it was 66 days, but you found the study, which was not easy to find. I mean, it was
wow,
really amazing. So that's why Marshall's doing a 66 days before he turns 40. How it's very hard to come to terms with the idea, especially in diet culture. And I think how diet culture is geared towards men, which is like be cut, stop, eat, do carnivore. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm fascinated you said, well, and then I realized it was an addiction. Like, how did you come to that?
So it wasn't necessarily sugar addiction. I kind of realized I was working in marketing for an addiction clinic actually,
Oh,
and so I did a lot of research for articles and started learning about addiction and how it affects the brain. Um, but I'd never had drug addiction. I may have had like somewhat of an alcohol addiction in college, but I don't know if it really because I it went away, so I don't know if I ever dealt with it like an addiction.
probably not if you're
So yeah,
okay
yeah,
now, by the
yeah, it
way.
went away. But if I really look at the trail of my life, I think food eventually like became the replacement for that. So it was
Mm,
kind of there before. Um, if I look back, I think I remember at a very young age. I can kind of trace back all the way back then, but I don't think I realized it until I was sitting in a parking lot eating a burrito from Taco Bell or something,
mhm,
and I had like more than I should, and I was like, why am I sitting here? I'm not even hungry. Like I'm
mm.
on my lunch break and I'm had a bad day at work, and it just dawned on me because I'd been doing all of this research on drug addiction and learning things that I'd never learned, and I'm like, I'm almost acting in the same way. And I remember telling my friend at the time, this was like 2016, and I told him, and I said, I think I'm addicted to food, and he just laughed, and he
Mm.
said, there's no way, there's no way. And to this day, there's certain people in my life that just they don't think it's a real thing.
Oh,
Like,
there's tons of people. I mean,
yeah,
for lots of reasons. I mean,
yeah,
I'll just give you my 2 cents on it because we're at lunch together. But
hmm,
I think listen, I think it really threatens people's relationship with food when we make these big changes, right?
yeah,
Like, I think people who have a problem with us making changes in our lives with food usually have a problem with food, and we are threatening their truth. So
yeah.
buckle up, put on your wetsuit. It's going to be one of many. How long have you, like, where would you say that your this relationship with food went south? Like, when would you say you were struggling?
If I really look at my entire life, like where I can pinpoint back to where it started, I
Yeah,
I would say pretty young age. I mean, if I look back at any trauma that I had, in childhood, I don't really want to go into that. There wasn't no like major abuse or anything like that, but it was, every child has things that affect them a certain way.
yeah,
And so when we'd have bouts in our family or something, at the end of the day, food always brought us back together. And so it was
mm,
like the meal at the end of the day always happened. There was always that tradition. I grew up in the South, and so there was always big suppers, as we'd put that.
right, right,
And so it was always like eat as much as you could kind of culture. I remember as a kid, even I played sports growing up, and after the game, the winning team would get a free pizza and a Coke. Um, and there was all this celebratory things around food. It just seemed to be the way it was, and so it didn't matter if it was a bad feeling or a good feeling.
mm,
It seemed to be the way, I thought it was normal, and it didn't really affect me. I didn't have major weight problems until my 30s,
yeah,
so it never occurred to me that this was a problem because I was always somewhat in shape until I hit my 30s.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it was kind of throughout my life. It was just, I remember being in high school and becoming more busy. I started working a part-time job. I was playing sports, and so it was always on the go. And I remember my go-to meal was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but it wouldn't just be one; it would be two. Or if I was getting a little crazy, I'd have a triple decker peanut butter and
right.
jelly sandwich. Just bread on top of bread.
To be effective, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, just because I was hungry. Even in growing up, my dad, it was just I was the growing boy, so they just fed me as
Right.
much as I wanted. Saturday morning pancakes. He fill up my plate as fast as I could eat them. And it was just seen as normal. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I think it started. Is mentality around food was just it's food. It's not a harmful thing. So
Also, I think I see a lot with men, and I think people who have like sports in their childhood history is that, I mean, they were burning off the food for so long that it actually didn't matter how much
yeah,
they ate. So it's almost like this undiagnosed binge eating in its
yep,
own way. And then what if you don't go pro or you
hmm,
don't become like a slave to the gym? You don't have any sort of eating habits or any sort of idea of self-control,
Hmm.
or regulation rather. And a lot of undiagnosed things come to the surface. So you're like not alone. It's actually probably what I see the most is this kind of sleeping addiction underneath. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I'm just sitting at work all day and eating, and it makes a lot of sense. And so
Yeah.
you made this decision. What day are you on today?
4. Yeah. I keep waking up every morning. I think, yeah, 4. Yeah, definitely 4. And I think making those daily reels has been helpful.
Yeah, you guys should
I think
watch these. They're really great. I
on
watch
day
them every day.
2, I believe I started giving in. I had a migraine on day 2. It was really
Mm.
bad. And so I had a hard time even thinking about eating because my head was just, I don't know.
You're like really detailed. Wait, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Day day negative one, did you like go hard? Were you like before,
I have, yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I heard that you don't like key lime pie, but it's one of my favorite things, and I ate half of like a small key lime pie.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I did.
I love that about you. You're really I really feel home in this conversation now.
Yeah, no, I told Jen, she's my wife. I said I need one last, hurrah before I jump on this train.
Yeah.
And but the thing is that's happened so many times. Like I've had this conversation with her and said,
Mm,
I'm quitting today. I'm not going to drink any more sodas. I'm not, and it happens. And then usually what's happened in the last 5, 6 years has been I get on this program of like training and working out and eating right, and then an injury occurs. And literally almost every year for the past 5 years, I've had a different injury, whether it was my back or my calves or something has gone wrong. And instead of like just recovering and bouncing back, I just fell off the
mm,
train and just never went back. I just gave up. So
totally.
this time I'm not gonna let that happen. So
Well, also, I think we can't make exercise contingent on our food. Like, I actually have them in
sure.
separate camps personally. I remember, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and I'm a pretty solid exerciser, but 10 years ago, I broke my foot.
Hmm.
And I remember calling my Molly and being like, I have to stop eating. I got to stop eating. Like, this is not okay. And she was just like, go eat your lunch. Like, just go eat lunch and call me after lunch and then eat dinner. Like, nothing's going to happen as long as you just like stick to the plan. And it worked. And then I always have this thought in my head, which is we need to create a food plan where we can break our foot. Like we need to, because it can't be so contingent on exercise. It just can't, because it
Sure.
like life gets in the way.
Yeah.
I always love to say it like so. And so any of these, like, just isn't diet culture fascinating how
Yeah.
ingrained it is that we have to be like going like balls to the wall with like exercise, blah, 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 blah. And it
Yeah.
just, we never think of these like middle path ideas like, hey, what can I do to like nurture my relationship with food today? What can I do to be like loving towards myself
Sure.
today? So you had your little like, I love a last hurrah. That's what I always say to people when I used to do real direct treatment. I'd be like, okay, so go eat everything and I'll see
Hmm.
you on Thursday. How did you prep for the whole thing? So Jen, I want to hear about Jen if we can talk. Is Jen like a helpful partner?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if it
Gosh,
wasn't for her,
you lucky ducky. There's a lot of people being like, not me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, she's kind of in the same boat, so we're kind of doing this together. She's not as she doesn't put herself out there. We're both very private people, so we don't really like. I just recently made my Instagram public because I knew I was going to do this. So she's very anti-social media and not really like into putting
Good for
her own
her.
stuff out there. But I will speak highly of her. She's very supportive and
So she's doing it with you. Everybody in the house is breaking up with
somewhat,
sugar.
yeah, yeah, somewhat. Like it's not as drastic for her. I don't think she has the same issue. But
Mm,
she's basically, supporting me in the sense that she'll help me make meals and prepare things and
wow.
throw things in the crock pot and whatnot.
Oh
So
my God.
I've been eating a lot of. I've been kind of keeping it simple and as much as possible. Breakfast is generally the same, just because I'm trying to transition into this and find ways to avoid bread and
Oh my
tacos,
gosh. And
shells,
a
and
thousand percent. Let me tell you something. I mean, I don't know. Like when I like sort of woke up from my long COVID, and so and I'm 13 years into this thing, right? And like
hmm
somebody, I was in session with somebody and she said, it's just so hard to plan. And I was like, is it? Because I can tell you what I'm eating for the next 4 days, but I'm eating so simply right now, right? I have
Mm-hmm.
Ezekiel toast and cottage cheese.
Mm-hmm.
I buy a salad every day because it's just so easy.
Easy, yeah.
And then I mean, I'm a big chickpea pasta person, but you may
Mm.
not be there in your first
I'm
66
I'm
days.
open to it. Yeah, I really love cottage cheese. I will say
Oh,
that.
I love
Something I
cottage
never.
cheese
It's
on an
something I.
Ezekiel toast.
Yeah, I just eat it straight up out of
Oh,
the
yeah.
you
I
know
write
like
about that in the book. I just remembered.
it almost feels like it's something I should probably check myself on because I
Eh,
love it so much. But
be
it's one of
gentle.
those things.
I
Uh,
think that's the whole point of this thing. Like, I actually love the thing I think you've said. I mean, I think you've said amazing things so far, but one of the things, just if I could play coach for a second, the thing that you're saying that's the most important right now, and the real link to the truth that you're saying is what happens to you traditionally, which is you go in this, and as an eating disorder therapist, you go into your program bulimically exercising. You go in with this intention of trying to burn weight off via exercise, which is kind of bulimia, right? Like
sure.
compensatory behavior to I'm eating the food, I want to burn off the food. And then that always backfires on you because you get injured.
Hmm.
I think if you can look at that and and I mean it sounds like you're looking at that and just do that much differently. And I want to make sure we do talk about that you said no carbs, because I want to make sure you're eating carbs because carbs are good for you.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
But I think if you
I'm
can
definitely
really,
eating carbs and
oh, good, phew,
refined carbs. I'm avoiding like
great.
bread and yeah,
Great. That's
flour.
amazing. That makes me, well, yeah, because flour is as addictive as sugar. But I think this piece that you're seeing, like looking at this like a diet, because that's what that is. I mean, there's just, I don't know. I know a few people who can sustain that,
Hmm.
but they're really, really wealthy and it's pretty disordered,
Hmm.
you know? And so it sounds like maybe you're looking at this as like, how can I do this for good? And so
Yeah.
I do love this idea of just like, how simple can I make it for this time that I'm in detox? So it also sounds like you went through some detox, huh?
Yeah, initially it seems like I did. I mean, I can't self-diagnose, but when I had those, the
That
migraine
migraine
on this,
sounds
yeah,
pretty
and
on
even
point.
on the day after yesterday, so yesterday I still felt a little bit like like a hangover feeling, like
Yeah.
it was weird. And I felt that before. It generally happens. I've tried keto. I've tried the keto diet about 5 or 6 years ago, and I lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying, like weight is an issue for me. This is more. I feel like this is more of a mental improvement, I guess, if that makes sense. Like
It makes
I,
sense to me. Yes.
because I feel like one of the biggest fears I have is like the sense of the loss of control over my ability to control myself. And
Mm,
so when I really look back at like all of the, it's like I said in one of my reels, like I felt like I was on autopilot, and I felt like that before. And so really breaking out of that is the goal for me so that I'm able to stay active and not let these bad distractions come in and find better ways to deal with whatever I'm dealing with. So if I get stressed out, if I have a bout of road rage, instead of going to work and buying a candy bar, I go for a walk on my break or something like that. And so
yeah.
that's what I've been doing is and with exercise, I'm not really even going hard because I don't want that injury to happen. I'm just trying to make baseline things happen, like 30 minutes of walking a day or going
Yeah.
swimming
Yeah.
for an
No,
hour,
that's
you
like
know.
loving exercise. I mean, by the
Yeah,
way, that's like better than there's like studies that support that's
sure.
better than Zoloft, by the way. So I'm
Exactly.
very pro that
It's
with
more
you.
it's really just I'm not pressuring myself too much because I think I've done that so much in the past, and that's what ultimately leads to my failure is just pushing myself too hard.
Well, yeah, and I think making it into this thing and this happens to so many people. It's making it into this program that's unsustainable
Hmm.
rather than making it into, or accepting that it's a relationship that you have to have no matter what.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're really rehabbing your relationship with food. And I love how you're saying it. It's like, if you've like really destroyed a relationship with somebody, right? You're not going to like go in hard. You're going to go in pretty simple, as you're saying, with simple food, with
Hmm.
loving exercise, with like
Hmm.
taking it easy. And slowly and surely, you're going to figure out what the next steps are in this relationship is like what it sounds like to me. It's
Yeah.
very exciting. So, what do you, so if I think about like the why, what do you think your why, have you gotten to that chapter yet? It's a good chapter.
Yeah, I mean, um, longevity of life. I mean, I have two kids,
Oh my gosh, how old are your kids?
9 and 6. So
Wow.
yeah,
Boys or
seeing
girls?
both. So my
Oh,
daughter's 9, my son is 6. So I,
I can't even tell you what a gift I mean, you know that, right? But
oh
in
yeah,
every
yeah,
way, just
exactly.
watching you take control of your health, like watching you,
Yeah,
wow.
it's kind of the core reason for a lot of things. And I feel like some of the habits that I've had are starting to rub off on them. I see them coping with
Mm,
food and stuff like that, and so trying to basically turn my life around so that they're young enough to where I can influence them and see so they see the change in me, that I can hopefully pass that on to them. So that's really the core reason. I mean, obviously I want health for myself, but it also ultimately like leads on to influencing them to do the right thing as well
that's
and
absolutely,
have good relationship with food. So
wow. I mean, I'm very rarely speechless, Marshall. That's really exciting. And so in the first 4 days, like what have you found to be, well, one question quickly. So you're pretty bright lined on the sugar and flour thing, huh?
what do you mean by that?
I mean, like you're pretty committed to saying I'm not doing sugar and I'm not doing flour. How did you come to, because so many people come in like litigating that a little bit. Well, I
Oh,
want to have coconut flour, or like I think honey nut Cheerios are okay.
so
I mean, you are so bright lined on this.
there was a there was a point I was on a walk about 3 weeks ago listening to your book, and I can't remember exactly what chapter it was, but you were talking about natural sweeteners, and you
Mm.
started going into stevia, which was my lifeline. I was like, well, I can have. There's a soda called Zevia that I
Oh
love,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so it's always been my lifeline. Like, okay, well, I can have this, and I would drink that every day. And I remember being challenged in my head. I was like, no, she can't be right. Like I can't. This is my thing, And I started thinking about it and remembering some of the research I'd done and my understanding of like of heroin users, and they use now I'm forgetting the drug that they use, but they use another
Methadone,
drug to, yeah,
methadone.
methadone,
Mhm.
to wean them off of and kind of help them come off. And I said, that's basically what this is for me, because
Wow.
I'm protecting it and I'm saying, well, no, I can have this. This is better than sugar. But ultimately, I realize what you're saying in that part of the book where it's kind of a bridge to back to sugar.
Right.
And so when that went off in my head, that's when I kind of realized like, okay, this is kind of I've got to deal with this now. So
But like it's so full throttle. No, I listen, I think this depend like the way you're understanding dependency is, I mean, you're in grace beyond grace right now. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sitting and talking to me about this. I feel so honored and privileged to get to talk to you. I was just telling the story to a patient the other day where I mean, nobody loved artificial sweetener like me. I mean, I was like, I mean, we're sort of the same age, but like, I was from the diabetes days where it was better for you. And
hmm
so when I broke up with sugar in the beginning, I would have the sugar-free chocolate, little teeny Hershey bars.
yeah,
And I was traveling a lot at the time. And I would travel with them. Like I would make sure that I like had them in the suitcase, had them because I got three at night and I would freeze them. And it was this whole like ritual.
yeah,
And I was working with, I think it was probably a sponsor in the 12-step programs back then. And he was like, take a look at it. You can't live without this. Take a look at it.
yeah,
And I don't know how I got willing to take a look at it, but I stopped it right then and there. And then I think also that research on artificial sweetener as I'm reading it, which is makes you crave sugar more, makes you not enjoy sweet things more,
yeah,
but I love this idea of the dependency. Like I have friends who carry sweetener like with them for their coffee.
sure,
I mean, I'm pretty dependent on half and half of my coffee, and it makes me really stressed out.
yeah.
I think that's really so the bright, so you can't really understand how you've become this clear on bright lines. You are accountable to a whole community now. I guess that's a really great thing that you're doing do you do reels every day on it?
I've been trying to. So I've started one earlier this morning. I've been kind of waking up as soon as I wake up, try to get my first thoughts out there, record it, and I tried to document throughout the day. I didn't really, like I said, I'm building this airplane in the sky, if you will. Like I just kind of, I knew my 66 days till I was 40 was coming up, and I had to kind of start it. And I felt like, well, I can either journal and keep it to myself, or I can put it out there. And
Yeah,
I
it's
don't really have
really
a plan, if
powerful.
that makes sense. I'm just kind of trying to do it as I go. So,
Well, as I'm really trying to expose my spiritual life here on what you're craving, I actually think you have a divine plan if you want to know what I think.
mm,
I think this thing is, I think what you're doing is powerful because you're really making this about relationship. Like I was so offended that my book had to be published or Divine's book had to be published on January 1st. You know, they're like, it's a diet book. It's got to come out Jan 1. I was like, oh, it's not a diet book.
hmm
I mean, it is a diet book to those two, but it's really, I feel like it's really a relationship book. And hey, I want to make sure that you get to the part of the book that talks about what to do when you don't want to do what you know you're supposed to do because I want you to ride this honeymoon. I want you
hmm
to ride it till the very end.
Is that chapter 13, getting
It
to the
is chapter
gray? That's where
13.
I'm
It's,
at right now.
oh
Yeah,
my gosh, that's so
yeah.
funny. I
I
wanted to
started
put
listening to
chapter,
it last
oh,
night,
okay.
actually. Yeah.
I wanted to put that as like the first chapter in the book because I think what ends up happening a lot of times is when we get some traction, we don't have anything else to do other than be perfect, right? And we haven't trained ourselves to just go and that's the part of the book I talk about. It's like where we slash all, when then we make a mistake. And it's exactly what you're saying about when you get your injury. It's like you get a flat tire on your car, you get out of the car, you slice all four tires, you torch the car, and then you're just angry that you don't have a car anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This happens to all of us.
hmm
And I think it's such an important thing to learn how to be imperfect, even though we're always aiming for perfection. But there has to be a variance. I call it harm reduction. I'm sure you know about it, given your like amazing research in addictions. It's pretty
I wouldn't call
incredible.
it by that. I've done some Google searches here and there. So
Yeah, harm reduction is actually like this way that people are treating drug addicts. I think, and food addiction is really a necessary means to be treating it on a harm reduction. And remember, everybody listening, the ultimate goal of harm reduction is abstinence. So people will be like, well, I only ate 2 donuts, but I usually eat a dozen. And I'm like, what's better than 2 donuts? No
hmm
donuts. Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, I just think you're quite amazing. So I'm wondering, this is my wish. Can we talk like at 30? Can we talk at like 31 days and 66 days?
I'm totally down.
I'm
Yeah.
so here for this
I I
journey.
I was very nervous that, like I told you, I had doubts up front, but after talking to you, I feel a lot better. And
Well,
even
I mean,
today,
we're like tribe, friend. I mean, we're together. I'm
this was
here.
the day for it to happen though, because like I said, the last 2 days were kind of rough, and then today I woke up and I just felt so good and so
Mm.
like empowered, and I said I'm gonna do this. Like I really feel like confident about this decision going forward. I'm not no longer like dreading, oh my God, I've got 60 something. I'm not even counting. I'm just living it at this point. So we'll talk in 20 days or so
Wait,
and
I have one
see.
more question though. This
Sure,
is like
sure.
this is like the headline just got buried. How did you get through those 4 days? Because I think that's really what happens to people. They start day one, day two, they get the physical detox, they get the cravings. It's like, no, thank you. Like, how did you? I mean, getting to day four is a really big deal.
I'm very active in my mind generally, so my mind is constantly going,
Yeah,
and
same here.
it wasn't easy. It was sort of credit to my job because I've been so busy the last couple days. So a good portion of my day is spent working,
Yeah.
and so I have to get these things done. I have deadlines that have to be met, and so that's been like 60% of the day. And then at the end of the day, it's just coming home, and instead of just laying on the couch or watching television for the rest of the day, I've been purposely like getting out and being active with my
That's
kids, and just
amazing. That's
even
in the
when I
book
had the
too,
migraine.
chapter 6 and 7, right? That's distress
Yeah,
tolerance. You're like,
yeah.
oh, okay, let me distract myself. Let me distract myself. This is really good information for people struggling. So you're just setting yourself up to not be able to think about food for these 4 days, except for when
Basically,
you have like a gnarly migraine. But
yeah.
that's,
I do I eat every 4 hours, or I try to get close as possible. I haven't been
mm-hmm.
perfect on that
Oh,
because my
good.
schedule is a little crazy. And then on day two, when I had the migraine, I just could not eat. I felt really bad that
Yeah,
morning, but by around 2 o'clock, I was able to eat, and I got back on the horse and started, ate two normal meals the rest of the day.
that's amazing.
But yeah, it's not been easy. But today's just the first day that I really felt positive and not anxious about it. Like I feel fine. I woke up, ate breakfast, and had my coffee, and I feel fantastic. I'm not even thinking about food, even though we're talking about it. So.
Wait, so Marshall, if people want to come and follow your daily reel journey, where would they follow you?
On Instagram at the Marshall Malone, the Marshall Malone. My
We'll
name
put it
is.
in the show
Yeah,
notes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also have a website, themarshallmalone.com, which basically is just my portfolio of all of my work. You can find all my socials on there as well.
Oh,
So
that's so amazing. I mean, I'm in, I'm following, I'm here for it. I'm so glad to have met you. I'm so glad to get to be in your power circle. If you'll have me, you'll get to, this is amazing.
this is surreal for me because, like I said, I've been following you for a couple months, and the fact that you reached out and asked me to be a part of this is pretty
Obsessed.
flattering. So yeah, it's great. Thank you.
All right. Well, go enjoy your Saturday, friend. I'll talk to you in about a month. All
Will
right.
do. All right, sounds
Okay.
good.